Welcome back to Good Living. Now, have you ever wondered what the hidden meaning is behind a place name? Well, I'm with the chap that you need to speak with and read his book. Peter Dowling, welcome to Good Living.
Good morning, how are you, Andrea?
Now, how did you come to revise the place names of New Zealand?
I've been involved for about 10 years. When I was at Reed Publishing, we combined A.W. Reed's two editions from the 1970s, but the work was in need of a full revision and update, given that a lot of time's passed since then, and names keep changing and new names keep coming on the scene.
Great. And thankfully, you actually asked me to pick out some names so we can find out hidden meaning. So could we start with that? Is that all right?
Sure, absolutely.
Great. The glue pot.
There's a wonderful spot called the Glue Pot. It's not an official name, and I don't think anyone's actually recorded it officially, but it's in the Taramaka River Valley, which a lot of people who tramp and the like would know. It was a spot where wagons used to get stuck because it was so muddy, and it was compared to a glue pot because I think there were instances of wagons taking miners and they got stuck and they needed to be extricated from it. So it was like a glue pot. It was so muddy out there.
Oh, that's a great story. Now, this one here is for Megan Banks, who I'm looking after the couch for. Geraldine.
Geraldine, a lot of people think it's a woman's name, obviously, but in fact the name was earlier Fitzgerald, after James Fitzgerald, who was the provincial councillor, governor, superintendent of Canterbury, and that's the clan name of James Fitzgerald from Ireland. Now, interestingly, there were all sorts of other names which were proposed for Geraldine, and it was known as Talbot at one point. The Māori name's completely different, but Geraldine is stuck.
Oh, lovely.
So it's an Irish clan name.
Oh, it's a good story. Racecourse Hill.
That's at the back of Springfield, and what's interesting about Racecourse Hill is you might think that there are a lot of races were held there, and it's a horse racing area. By all accounts, the name was given long before there was much settlement in the area, and it just looked like a racecourse. So the hill's shape was circular, and it was noted as being somewhere that horses could have raced, but in fact there's been no record that there were races ever held there. The name's stuck, and maybe races will be held there one day.
Goose Bay.
Goose Bay's an interesting one because it's a pretty early name. It's obviously an English name, probably from the 1820s, but there's two accounts of it, and what you find in the book is there are a lot of different accounts, and we try to give them both. One is that there were some geese which were being raised by whalers in the area, and it was a whaling area along the coast there around Kokoda, and some goose got away and were released, and so they named it Goose Bay. But there's also a version that Te Raupara, who was doing raids down, and famous raids down to Kaiapoi and the like in the late 1820s, also startled some geese which were in the kainga there and got its name from that incident.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so there's a lot of history tied up.
We've only touched on a few of the place names that are featured in the book. Where do you start when you have to revise an already published book? It's quite a task.
It's a long task. You start with the published work and see what's changed and try and boil it down, and then go to a lot of local historians, go to Waitangi Tribunal, government sources. The New Zealand Geographic Board's constantly changing names, but it's a never-ending field, really. There's thousands of names still to get, but we've got all the main ones and hopefully all the updates and variants in this edition.
So it's quite labour-intensive, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes hours and hours. And it's also collaborative because I rely on people from different parts of the country who really know the local history. I'm a Canterbury, so I know a lot of the stuff here, but people from different parts of the country will send in things to me, or I'll find their books and work through those.
Father's Day is fast approaching. This would be a perfect book for a dad, wouldn't it?
I would think so.
But who else would enjoy?
Anyone with an interest in their local area and history. The field that we're working in is all about geography, language and history. So anyone who wants to understand a bit more about their place and the history that goes into it, also good for students, I would think.
And where can we buy place names of New Zealand?
Well, any good bookstore should have it, so any of the good bookstores in Christchurch would be available.
What's next, Peter?
We need to continue this work. I've put it all into a database, and we're continuing to do some work on this, particularly focusing on Māori names, because there's been a lot of changes in those areas.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. It's been a pleasure bringing you in today, and thank you very much for researching those place names. I put you on the spot.
That's all right. There's so many there that we need to do a lot of background work on them, but it's a really fun field, and I hope people will enjoy it equally. No, it's great. And so make sure you do buy this for Dad. I think it's a wonderful coffee table we can just flick through any time. Great. So all the best for the future. Thank you. Cheers for that.